This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night, so we hope you've had a safe holiday weekend. But if you had legal problems before you're going back to the work week, they're still there waiting for you. And if you had any sort of injuries or problems over the weekend, this might be your chance to call in and ask. The 31 Law Call number, 536-0077. And you can call in and be live on the air, or you can text us to that same number, 536-0077. You can also email a legal question on any legal topic. You send it any day of the week to lawcall@waytv.com. And when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out, and we've got some of your email questions tonight. Heath Brooks and Bobby Marsh are here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. Good to have you here.
Great to be here. Yep.
Personal injuries is what you guys do. So 4th of July weekend, you have got to be expecting the worst.
That's right. You know, you got firework disasters. You got people sometimes getting on the road in ways they shouldn't be getting on the road.
Drinking and driving.
I stay off the road during the July the 4th weekend as best as I possibly can. I stay off the road.
Talked to a nurse this weekend. It's the same thing. You guys, you're expecting the worst, right?
That's right. That's right. Busy ER weekend, that's for sure, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've got some video to get us started with tonight. So you make the law call while we get your calls coming in. So slip and falls. Okay, this is not your typical slip and fall caught on camera, because you can watch him see that he tosses out his little ice that he just got. Looks around, setting up his scheme. So, you know, people can be extremely hurt in real situations.
That's right.
So thank goodness these folks had a camera up watching.
That's right. You know, we do a bunch of these. We have a bunch of cases involving folks that do fall in places of business, you know, those kinds of things. And most of the floors are concrete, so they come up really fast, and you have really bad situations sometimes for folks. This is not one of those situations. In fact, if this fellow went and tried to make an insurance claim for his injuries, we're talking about insurance fraud.
Okay, so could he get in big trouble for that?
He can get in big trouble for that, you know, but it's one of those things, and this is an important time to mention this. It's called spoliation of evidence. That's the fancy legal term for it. And that means that when you have evidence that is important to determining what happened, you can't just destroy it. If you're a defendant, if you're a plaintiff, you have a responsibility to keep that evidence. And of course, that evidence we're here talking about is a videotape. And I can tell you right now, if this is a store that we write a letter of representation to, they're going to send us that video immediately.
Yeah.
If the video helps the defendant, you'll get it immediately. If it helps the person that fell, you better file a lawsuit, because you're not going to get it unless you do.
Okay. Call in your questions, 536-0077. Let's talk a little bit about fireworks.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a big situation with a bunch of people injured, right? What do you,
There
this
was.
weekend?
I believe it was on Lake Martin.
Yeah.
Boat loaded down, from my limited understanding, was a boat, you know, that was not authorized to perform a fireworks show, loaded down with fireworks, ultimately exploded, injuring a bunch of folks. So,
that's right.
Awful situation.
Hopefully everybody's getting better from that one.
Yeah.
If I go to a show, like I'm watching, and something shoots out and hits me, do I have a case?
You know, you've got a bunch of different kind of situations with fireworks. I can think of one when I was a kid, and one of my uncles was setting off fireworks, and a firework went into the bag. And then, of course, all the bags blew up, and everybody's diving behind pine trees and, you know, just trying to get out of the way of what's coming. You know, when you have those kinds of situations, and then you're at an event where you have actually paid to go, and there are paid professionals that are performing a fireworks display, and then if something bad happens, if one of those people is negligent and causes an injury to the folks in the crowd, that's not what's considered a dangerously inherent activity to be in a crowd with fireworks. Okay. So that organization could be responsible if they injure folks. And you know, the same kind of situation is that if you're not using good common sense with the fireworks and you cause somebody to be injured, if you're being reckless, maybe you've drank a little too much and you're using fireworks, you actually could be responsible as well. Okay. So, you know, these are fireworks, we think of them as toys, you know, and they're fun. And my daughter's out there with the, you know, sprinklers, but they can cause some pretty serious problems too.
Absolutely.
Would if you shoot some off, or somebody gets injured at your house with something like that, would homeowners insurance be a possibility?
Yeah, that's what you would utilize. So you may have on your homeowners insurance policy, you may have what's called medical payments coverage that could pay for medical bills. But But if the if the person who's visiting your property, depending upon why they're there, if they're just a friend, chances are you're not going to have much of a responsibility unless you're reckless, unless you just do something really, really stupid.
Okay.
But the question is if you're shooting off fireworks and they go into somebody else's yard where they're not supposed to be.
Okay, or set something on fire.
Set something on fire, you have a potential trespass, maybe you're potentially negligent. So there are some repercussions, you know, in that kind of situation, and we see them from time to time, you know, where somebody else, completely unintended, is injured by a firework and, you know, through no fault of their own.
So many fireworks stands open up this time of year. If I buy something from one of those places and it goes off wrong, do I have a lawsuit there? I don't even know where this stuff comes
Well,
from.
is that a product?
You could potentially be looking at a products case, depending on if it was negligently manufactured in a way where it, you know, did not perform properly as the way it was intended to.
Okay.
So it really just depends on what the facts are surrounding your injury.
Yeah, we have a products liability statute in the state of Alabama that provides responsibility to people who make things to make it correctly and to design it correctly. And if you don't make it correctly, and say the fireworks, you go to light it and it immediately blows up in your hand, that could be a problem with the manufacturer of the firework, and the fireworks manufacturer can be responsible. The problem there,
where's it from,
trying to figure out where the firework is from.
Yeah.
You know, the general rule of products liability cases, if you don't have the product, you don't have a case. So that can be a real problem if you don't have
up, you don't have it.
Right. If
there
it
goes
blew
your
up,
evidence.
you don't have it. That's exactly right.
Good luck proving that one. Okay, we got an email question in. When someone contacts you about a legal claim, this is from Lewis. When someone contacts you about a legal claim, what happens at the first meeting? Do I need to bring a whole bunch of paperwork and documents, or do I just come in and tell my story? So what do you guys do?
So this is a great question, Sharon, and a lot of the folks that we meet with on a daily basis have never come to an attorney's office. This whole process is new to them. This is something we get every day. So when you come in, you know, the main thing we're trying to learn is what happened. So any documents you have that can help us figure out that story would be beneficial to bring. You know, for instance, in a car wreck case, one of the things we're always looking for, if you have a copy of it, is the crash report. It provides us a lot of information not only about the facts of the wreck, but also about the parties involved, what potential insurance coverage may be applicable. And then also, like I said, just a general narrative of what happened. It could also contain witness names, which are very beneficial. Photographs are also extremely helpful. You know, we obviously were not there. Your story is very helpful, but the photographs could help us, you know, really see what happened, see the extent of the damage, see what you went through. So really any documents, any photographs, and also a lot of folks will bring us, you know, medical documentation.
Okay.
I went to this hospital. This is what they did. This is what I was diagnosed with. Anything you have that can help tell your story would be beneficial to bring the first time you come and meet with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think your story matters. And so that's one of those things that we're trying to recreate what happened as, you know, that caused you to be sitting in front of us. And I think most lawyers will say this. And so some proper preparation work, you know, to bring those documents, it certainly helps us begin our investigation so we can do a better job, you know. But of course, if all you've got is yourself and you're just ready to tell your story, that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, it's one of those things that you do the best you can. These are generally, it's a new situation for someone.
Yeah.
It's the first time they've ever been in front of a lawyer. You know, they don't know anything about, maybe, do I got to get in a lawsuit? Am I going to have to, is this going to be some long drawn out thing? What's going to happen with me in the future? Am I going to be able to afford my medical bills? Do I need more medical treatment? Who do I talk to about getting that medical treatment? You know, it can be a pretty tumultuous time for folks. And so, you know, do the best you can to gather all the information that you can to bring to your lawyer, but at the same time, you know, it's a situation where you know, we're there to help. So.
If you're coming to see a family law attorney, because I do that, so if you were trying to figure out what the child support is going to be, you're going to want to bring your W-2s from last year and your spouses or the other parents, so we can do a child support calculation. Cost of insurance, that's probably going to be on somebody's pay stubs.
Right.
And then if there's a cost for daycare, you're going to want to bring those, and we can run some numbers even while you're sitting there.
That's
If
good
you
to
had a
know.
prenup and you're coming to see about a divorce, be sure and bring that with you.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a break. We'll be
Good
right
advice.
back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night, so call in or text us.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of attorney Michael Timberlake, attorney Will League, attorney Heath Brooks, attorney William Maservi, and hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night. We're taking your calls on any legal question. We've got with us Heath Brooks and Bobby Marsh. They do personal injury cases. I do family law, and we've got callers waiting. We've got Mike from Bridgeport. Hi, Mike. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight? Hi, Mike from Bridgeport. Yeah. Mike, turn your TV down because there's a delay, and just listen through your phone. What's your question tonight?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Okay, I am, Dave, mine's nothing to do with injury.
Okay.
That's fine.
Go ahead, Mike. What's
Okay,
your
I got
question?
you.
Sure.
Okay, I'm having a problem. It's not a personal injury or anything. It's with a mechanic. I took my vehicle in. I had an oil leak, and he told me that what it was. Said I'm, pretty booked up. Give me a couple of weeks. He said just leave it with me. I might get to it before then, and we agreed on the price. He told me what it was, and it's been over 2 months now. And I went down there. He called me about 2 weeks ago and said, I'll have your car ready or your truck ready by the middle of the week. Well, he didn't. So I go down there, and he just won't talk to me. I mean, he's just really rude, telling me I can't get nothing done if I'm standing here talking to you. And I said, you've had my vehicle. At that time, it was for over 6 weeks. Now it's been over 2 months. And I just wonder what recourse I have that, he got my vehicle tore down, he said, and I could see that he had the transmission out of it. But, the other mechanics I've talked to said that this is not a great big job.
Had you paid him already, too? What do you figure he should do? The car's torn down, so you can't even drive it away.
Well, the thing is that whenever you get, and Mike, I'm sorry to hear that, and whenever you go to a mechanic and whenever you are paying somebody to do a job for you, and whether it's a mechanic, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's an accountant, it doesn't really matter. When you've paid somebody something for a service, you formed a contract. And when you form a contract where you pay somebody money to do something for you and they don't fulfill their term of the contract, then when that happens, you've got a couple of options. The first thing you can do is, and I say this to everybody, the first thing you can do is sit down and write a letter to the fella. And I know that one of the things you want to do is you want to be able to drive down there, get out your truck, go inside, talk to them, deal with shaking your hands, or maybe just pick up the phone and call them and make sure everything's okay. And that is fine to do until you get to a point where you are now. And now what you need to do is you need to put in writing what the terms of your contract were, that you've already given him money and you expect your car to be completed in however many X number of days, 14 business days. And then if either he doesn't give you your car back and your money back, or he doesn't repair your car and keeps your money, then your option is to go down to the 8th floor of the Madison County Court and file a complaint in the district court. And that means file an actual lawsuit. Because at the end of the day, it's not some situation where you can go down there and you can just take it from them. You're going to have to rely upon the court if you can't work something out otherwise. So, I know it's a frustrating situation, but I think your best course of action is to put it in writing exactly what you want so that you have that. And then if he doesn't abide by whatever term of days that you put in your writing, go ahead and go down to the 8th floor of the Madison County Court. If you're in Madison County, I'm assuming you're in Madison County, but whatever county you're in, file in the district court. And in district court, your amount that you're seeking will be under $20,000. That's why that's the type of court you can go in front of a judge. You don't have to have a jury trial. I think it'd be a lot better for your situation.
Does he have to have a lawyer? Could he do this himself?
You don't necessarily need a lawyer, but what do you think, Bobby?
No, I mean, district court is set up in a way where folks don't really need attorneys to help them. It's always, great to run your question by an attorney if you have one, but, the district court clerk's office, they can help you fill out the complaint forms. They can walk you through the process. Folks appear before district court judges every day without an attorney. The proceedings are a little bit less formal, a little bit less intimidating. Can still be nerve-wracking for folks. You are still talking to a judge, but it's really set up in a way for folks to get their situation, their complaint heard quickly and handled efficiently. Now, to expand on what Heath mentioned a moment ago, when you have that writing with you, make sure you preserve a copy of it. That'll be important evidence if you do have to go the court route.
That's right.
We got in a text question. How long should it take for a claims adjuster to give me an estimate on a vehicle and send reimbursement? It was involved in an accident in February 2025, and the claims adjuster does not even come to inspect the damages and won't return calls. How long should it take, a car accident kind of thing?
It varies. It varies greatly. It varies greatly depending upon the insurance company of the person who caused the wreck. If you're not at fault for wreck, it's not your own insurance company, somebody else caused the wreck, and now you're making a claim against somebody else's insurance company, it can vary widely how much time it takes, depending upon whether it's a local insurance company, when I say local, offices in Alabama, or an out-of-state insurance company that has to get some different independent person to look at a car. But generally speaking, it shouldn't take more than a week or two to actually have an estimate on the car after you get your police report and after the insurance company sees the police report. Generally, what ends up happening is after you get in a wreck, the insurance company has to assess fault. And that is a process that is dependent upon each individual insurance company and how they determine who is responsible. Once responsibility is established, then there's a moving forward with the property damage part of your complaint. So it can vary widely, but if they're not getting any movement after a couple of weeks, what do you think they should do?
I think you should absolutely follow, send them a letter, sort of the same thing we were just discussing. People aren't really afraid of a phone call, but following up in writing with that adjuster. If you can't get the adjuster, go back through the normal 1-800 claims number. Just keep following up until somebody hears you. You may have to get a lawyer involved if it gets to a certain point and they're just not moving on your vehicle.
I'll tell you one great thing about, what we're doing. We got property damage and then we got personal injury. And most lawyers that do my kind of personal injury work handle the personal injury side of the case, and the property damage is already worked out. Here's what I'll tell you. If you have a property damage issue, contact a lawyer. Even if you don't retain them, they can give you some really good advice that can help you through the process.
Okay, absolutely.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back answering more of your questions for Ask Us Anything Night. Stay with us. If we don't get to your question tonight, here's how to reach Heath Brooks and Bobby Marsh with Timberlake, League & Brooks, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon does family law. That's child custody, divorces, adoption. She can be reached at 256-539-7337 or www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
We got callers waiting. Brenda's on the line with a question from Athens. Hi, Brenda. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hi, how are y'all?
Good. How are you doing tonight?
I'm okay. Yeah, what I was calling for, my son was in a car accident and he had brain damage and paralysis, spine. And the way they wrote the accident up.
Yes, ma'am?
This was his fault, but he got hit from behind.
How long ago was this accident, Brenda?
He had never, I had a lawyer with my insurance company, but he was still in intensive care for about 3 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I was just wondering, will he ever have a hearing concerning this?
Gotcha. So if the police report says it's his fault, is that the be-all, end-all?
The thing I learned very early in my legal career is that a police report in the state of Alabama is not admissible. in the state of Alabama in front of a jury. And that's critically important. And, you know, we try cases and a jury sometimes ask at the end of the trial, why didn't we get a look at the police report? And we have to explain to them, hey, look, it's just not admissible in the state of Alabama. Only a jury or a judge can determine who is at fault for a wreck. So an officer's opinion about who is at fault for the wreck has no bearing on a jury's decision, and in fact takes away that decision from the jury, which is why police reports aren't admissible. So, Brenda, in answer to your question, just because the officer put your son as at fault for the wreck absolutely does not mean he's at fault for the wreck. We see that fairly frequently. Officers do the best that they can do with the information that they have. Sometimes that information ends up being different once we're able to get accident reconstructionists and things like that involved.
It's hearsay, right? Hearsay.
It's hearsay, absolutely. They weren't there. They're going off what witnesses or the parties themselves told them. All of that goes against the admissibility of the evidence, like Heath said.
Okay. We've got Pete on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Pete. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Well, my wife came out of the getting her nails done at Park Place Mall, and she was walking down, and the lady grabbed her on her shoulder and said, "Here, we got this moisturizing cream," and she kind of forcefully put her in the chair. Then she put this moisturizer. She said, "You'll really love this cream," and she put it on her eyes, and it just started burning stuff really bad right away. And then the lady, when she went to go clean it off, wipe it off, she scratched the cornea and retina and stuff, and she was blind in her left eye for like 3 days, and it took her about a month before she could see out of it right.
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
Okay. So what happens with something like that? Is this a lawsuit? I mean, she's blind for 3 days, and what do you do?
I mean, it certainly could be. You know, the question will be, you know, what did they put on there? Obviously, first you have possibly even an assault, because clearly it sounds like, Pete, from what you're saying, your wife did not give her permission to forcefully attack her like that and force her into a chair. Could also have a products case, like we were discussing earlier with the fireworks, depending on, you know, what happened with this lotion, what was it supposed to do? I mean, it certainly doesn't sound like it was proper.
That's right. And, you know, the other thing that I think about is if I am somebody who's responsible for putting on a lotion on somebody else. Like, in other words, I'm the expert.
Yeah.
I'm the expert. I'm in the makeup department. I'm in this store. You sit down in my chair. I put the makeup on you, and that cream was not supposed to go on your eyes. Then I, as the person who is the expert in applying this product, now I'm responsible for being negligent and causing this injury. So I think, you know, Pete, there's a potential that your wife could have a claim against that employee, and because that employee is currently working for another store, then that store is responsible for the conduct of the employee. So you may have a claim against that store as well. So there's a lot to unpack there. Potential assault, maybe it's negligence, but those are some options that you potentially have to pursue a claim.
We were looking at the news and we're talking about all the flooding that's going on, and you guys were talking about insurance.
That's
what are you
right.
advising people to do?
Well, that's a tragic
terrible.
situation down in Texas. It's a horrific situation. Bobby is purchasing a new home, and he's on a hill, and we were talking about whether or not he needed to get flood insurance for being on a hill. And what do you think now?
Well, I've learned that, you know, all home insurance policies have an exclusion for flooding. However, Heath informed me that flood insurance is very affordable, especially if you don't live in a flood-prone area.
Get it.
And so the moral of the story is absolutely get it.
Get flood insurance.
Yes.
Thanks for all your questions. We'll see you next week.